Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Stephen Rosen, who is the creator of Star Strategy Execution Program. Welcome to the program, Steve.
I'm so glad to be here, Mike. Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. And, I love starting off just saying, hey, what's your background and how did you come up with the name of your company or the name of your program? And certain words I feel jump out and resonate with people and definitely with me. And so I love strategy and execution. In fact, my marketing firm, the tagline is strategy, tactics, and execution. And so I love that you've included those because it's so important, right? Because so many people just get ready, and then they never do anything because nothing happens until you get something done. So give us a little bit of background on yourself and then also what the premise is with your Star Strategy Execution Program.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mike. And, we all think of how can we succeed in business? And some folks are great at strategy. Not as many folks are as good at execution. And really, how this all came about is, I survey my subscribers to the Star Sales Management newsletter and said, guys, tell me what your biggest challenge is. And this was done actually the same time last year as it is now. We did it in the middle of the summer. And I said, tell me what your biggest challenge is except for making your numbers. And interestingly enough, a lot of people put down making my numbers was my biggest challenge. But second to that was executing, being able to execute our plan. And it just dawned on me that, hey, this is the challenge that many sales and business unit leaders are facing. And started to do some research, as to what the literature says. And, compared to strategy and tactics, execution, that there was probably a handful of books. Where on the strategy side, there's hundreds of books on strategy and, looking at a very simple equation to success, and many folks have seen it. It's strategy plus execution equals success, or as I like to call it, crushing your sales numbers. So hence the program started from there, and I did some extensive research and have done a number of articles on the area of execution, and my belief is that's probably one of the biggest sources of competitive advantage that companies can have, yet many fail to do a good job at it.
I really feel I almost feel like I'm holding the reins, going, okay, we could go about 3 hours on that one intro statement, right? Yes. But here's something that jumps into mind. Ready, aim, fire. Well, so many people have fire or ready, fire, aim. And I think that's where that strategy and execution comes in, because you can go execute today, but are you executing the right thing for the right reason to get you to the next step? Well, that's why you need that strategy first. Well, on the other hand, if you just, pour yourself into strategy only, then that idea is collecting the proverbial digital dust, either on your computer or you spent 6 months with your management team going, yes, here's the strategy, and then it just fritters away to nothing being implemented or executed. So I love your combination there. So here's one question that I have. You mentioned some research. I teach marketing for 3 different universities, so I love tying in, academics to this, because this isn't just Stephen Rosen's, harebrained idea. This is something that is based on research. So let's talk a little bit about that, what you noticed out there when you were researching this.
Well, interestingly enough, and, as a university professor, I know a lot of people put Harvard Business Review in high regard. It's a high-value publication and lots of great ideas, and actually lots of great professors have come out of that school and have put many articles together. And when I started doing my research, again, there's a number of really good books, but one of the interesting articles that caught my attention was the March 2015 Harvard Business Review, which they dedicated a whole issue to making strategy work and really how to avoid the traps and execute brilliantly. Was one of my insights, and they quoted a survey which was done of 400 CEOs around the world, not just the U.S., not just Canada or North America, but across the world, and ask them what are the major challenges that they face. And there was lots of issues, whether it be one of innovation, talent management, geopolitical instability, top line growth, and the number one issue that CEOs flagged was execution. So, companies realize, and I think you just mentioned it, that as marketing folks, mid-size to larger companies have really good marketing processes in place, whether it be brand planning, and they put rigors to those plans and what have you. And then, the marketing guys just basically lob it over the fence and say, okay, sales, go and execute.
Yeah.
So companies are great at strategy. I remember I hired someone a number of years ago from a competitor, and he came in and he said, Stephen, you have the same strategies as our competitor, the company I came from. And he said the difference is going to be who executes better. And that resonated with me for probably over 20 years. The key difference is really comes down to execution, because everyone knows what's critical, what they should do, which is really the strategy component. And they may differ somewhat on the hows, but sales forces are overwhelmed with things that they're being asked to do. And execution becomes very challenging.
I agree, and I think there's a couple other elements that I would add in as sub-points to what you just said, which is, I think that, like the concept of first to market. Sometimes you cannot be first to market, but the velocity of money or the velocity of an idea is so important. When you come up with that strategy, there is something to be said, and I know that there is some research study out there somewhere that would document that if you let some great strategies sit for even X number of days, weeks, or whatever, then it kind of just wanes. But if you just get on it, you're going to have that much more success. And the other aspect of that is to just get something out there so that your target audience, your sales prospects are seeing something. It's almost like an MVP, a minimum viable product. So not that you're going to put something out there halfway, but maybe you're going to just get something out there and then start massaging and polishing and tweaking as you go, but just get in motion. Is that something that you feel like could help with the 60 to 90% of companies that recognize that they failed to execute? Just get something going, and then that gets kind of momentum started. And then now let's go to phase 2 in 30 days, which is now to execute at this level. And then phase 3 is to execute the same thing, but even better at that level.
Well, I use different words, Mike, but good. Conceptually, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And quite simply, I would assume, or I know that all companies will write up their marketing plans, right? That's not just a thing in someone's head. They actually write formal marketing plans. They do formal PowerPoint presentations, right, with hundreds of slides or hundreds of backup slides. But what happens on execution? Is there a plan in place? I mean, and what you just described to me was what I call a plan. First month we do X, second month we do Y. And execution doesn't have to be complicated. But if you think of the time that companies invest, and many companies I work with are starting their marketing cycle, or have already started their marketing cycle for next year. Mm-hmm. So plans are being built, top line numbers are being developed, budgets are being developed. So companies probably spend a minimum, the marketing group, of 3 months developing their plans. And I guess the question is, how much do they spend on how they're going to execute? How much time is spent? How many meetings are on execution? And how many plans are drawn up, what I call an execution plan? I would say not very many. Any thoughts from your experience?
I would back it all the way up to what you first said about the marketing plan and say there's a lot of businesses that don't even have that, and they have a scant business plan, because as you know, there's a difference between a business plan and a marketing plan. A marketing plan is an element of a business plan, but then you need to have a full-blown marketing plan. But then to your point, it starts going down and down and down to the people that have an execution plan. But why wouldn't there be that? I mean, why not make that a thing? Here's a great opportunity for Stephen Rosen. Make that a thing so that everybody knows, we need a business plan. We need a marketing plan. We need an execution plan. I think that's a great point.
And that's where I'm at, the program, the first step in the program. And actually, let me just, because execution for a lot of people, I can't say I was a great strategist, Mike. When I was in industry, I loved sales, and, I was VP of sales and a business unit head. I was great at execution. I don't think I was great at the strategy side. I wasn't bad. I wasn't complete nincompoop, but I was pretty good, and I had some good marketers who could help in that regard, but really thinking about how you're going to make it happen. So I've taken a definition, and I've just changed it a little bit, but if you look at what execution is, because I think it's important we're all working on the same language, and execution is really the discipline of getting the most important things done, and I put comma really well. And quite simply, in all my business, I talk about focus. And, companies try to be too complicated and try to do too much, and they become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And my belief, in the coaching I do, in the consulting I do with companies, is pick the 2 or 3 key things you need to do really well to be successful, and guess what? Do them well. And to me, companies that can do that, I did that in my career. When you're in the midst of the battle, you don't really think, what am I doing? But since I've had time to be on my own and to work with other companies, it became crystal clear to me that companies that are more focused and know what they need to do, which is execution, right? It's okay, this is how we're going to be successful, do far better. And it's not a complicated process.
Yeah, I just love the way you laid that out. That makes 1,000% relevance to what we've been talking about, and it makes me think of something really interesting. You know the old phrase when you're growing up and you're practicing your instrument, and it's like, oh, practice makes perfect. Well, that's not a true statement, because if you practice incorrectly and you do that over and over, you're not going to get perfect. So it's perfect practice makes perfect. So to your point, you need to do it well. And then it makes me think of something fun. Growing up, I watched a lot of Bruce Lee movies, and he's known for saying, I fear not the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. So that gets back to your point about focus, right?
I'm with that, yeah. And I think, on a very simplistic level, companies, if you look at individuals, and I say Mike is focused, and I know you are focused, Mike. What words conjure? What does that conjure up? Well, Mike's on top of his business. He's a thought leader. He knows his stuff. And if you say, hey, someone's unfocused or a company's unfocused, they're all over the board. They're disorganized. They don't know what they're doing. So what we try to do is bring focus and execution together. And we've built the formula, that there's 3 steps to it, but certainly the key is, and most companies don't have it, is an execution plan to say, what are we doing, and how are we going to get there, and how are we going to measure it. And, you talked about new product launches, and some of this thought process is put together on new product launches where there's a lot more detailed thought given to how we're going to execute versus how we're going to execute throughout the year. And if companies took the same rigor that they take to new product launches towards execution, they'll certainly get better at that.
Let's wrap up with this question, because I think that strategy is so important. We've talked about having an execution plan is so important. We've talked about that. But what's the end result? So if you go to a company and you say, let's work on your strategy, let's put together an execution plan, and the ROI, the result is going to be for sales to see X. Don't tell us specific numbers. We're not talking that. But what's the outcome? What is the point behind having an execution plan?
Well, it provides greater focus to your salespeople, greater clarity, greater direction, so management is perceived to be on top of things. I think easily, and we've actually piloted in 2017, we've run a pilot program with 3 organizations, and we're seeing some really good results. I can guarantee a company will be plus 10% with great execution. Okay, so one, it creates clarity for people. I believe because of that, and there's a couple other components where, the management team is leading execution, so keeping people very focused. And as salespeople, if you can make life easy for me, I'm going to produce better. And that's what we try to do, and providing that level of engagement through the process, and also having clear measurements, because sometimes it's nebulous what you're measured against. Yes, there's sales, and when sales are great, nobody looks at anything else, right? Sales are great, we don't have to look at anything else.
Yeah.
But when sales are off, management spends a lot of time explaining why. And if you can figure out what key activities or what do you need to do really well to accomplish your objective, then there's greater clarity. And of course, one of the ways to keep it on track comes back to the concept of the balance scorecard, right? Or I call it the execution scorecard. And again, if you've picked 3 key areas, and I love the number 3. I don't know why, but 3 seems to be a manageable number. Once you go to 4 or 5, there's only a few things that people can do a good job focusing on. And if you've picked those items, and even if you haven't picked the right ones, but you do them extremely well, chances are you'll be much more successful than if you haven't done the process.
Yeah, I agree. And, I love your other point about consistency. So once you do have this execution plan and laid out with management, and they roll it out, quote unquote, roll it out to the team or to the organization, it can't be just a rollout. It can't just be like, okay, now on to the next bullet point. It needs to be part of their ethos, and it needs to be part of their culture, and it needs to be managed, because what gets managed gets done, as we know. So I think that's another huge aspect that you brought up that I wanted to recognize, because it really is something, it goes beyond just having that execution strategic plan. It's doing it well, and then doing it consistently well. So I love your concept. It really is a competitive advantage. So, Stephen, what is the best way for someone to learn more, maybe engage with you, to learn to see if this could be a good fit for their organization?
Okay, Mike. Well, they can find some more information on my website, which is www.starresults.com. So it's 2 R's. And if they go to /strategy execution, they can certainly find more about the program. I've got a few areas that we help sales and business unit leaders crush their sales numbers. That's one area that we've had some really good traction in our pilot program, and we're ready to roll it out. We'll be introducing, or should be introduced in August, what we call the strategy execution ebook, which subtitle is, strategy is sexy, execution sucks. We're giving it away free. So if you visit my website, it provides a lot of the in-depth thinking that I've been doing from the literature on execution, and I think can help any sales executive, business unit leader be much more successful in 2018. So the timing is good. We're offering some great resources to get you to think, and we'd be more than happy to have a discussion, schedule a meeting, and talk about what your challenges are and how I can help you crush your numbers in 2018.
Excellent. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the program today. It was wonderful getting to know you and your strategies.
Mike, thank you, and I love the questions, and I think we're very much aligned in terms of thinking, and that's a good thing, because there aren't a lot of people out there talking about strategy execution. That there's a ton of folks talking about cold calling, prospecting, but when you go to a more senior level, and you look at how we're going to drive, create a successful organization, to me, this is a key source of competitive advantage.
I love it. Excellent. Thanks again, Stephen.
Thank you, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.